Lawyers of Reddit, what was the weirdest case you worked on? I had a case where the plaintiff told me he caught Adolf Hitler and that he won the Medal of Honor. His attorney missed court a lot. Once because her pet duck had a nostril infection. The transaction was for approximately $6 million, and when I asked him whether he had applied for financial help, he stated that he'd asked an Irishman for a loan. He could not identify the specific Irishman. This case lasted in the NYS Supreme Court from 1995 to 2015. I miss it. It was so much fun. Not a lawyer, but work at a law firm. There's a case where a crazy lady's neighbor was allowed to have chickens in their yard. So she bought pigs. And the whole city stepped in and made her get rid of them. It was a suburban area. In retaliation, this lady buys 5,000 chickens from Tyson and unleashed them into her half-acre backyard. The chickens all die. Obviously. She sued the trucking company that brought the chickens for defective chickens and negligent infliction of emotional distress because her daughter had to view the gore of 5,000 dead chickens in her backyard. She was pro-sen, of course. Defective vape rig exploded in a guy's pocket and burned his pen 15 off of his body. The settlement was very large. Discovery and reviewing medical records was extremely graphic and disheartening. I cannot imagine the anguish this man went through. Living without a pen 15 from age 30 onwards would be an absolute nightmare. Not a lawyer, but one of the car dealerships my dad worked for had a commercial in the 80s where they used a guy dressed up in a gorilla outfit, and the dealership had a whole jungle theme. In one of the commercials they said, like, come down and get a new whatever car it was for 10,000 bananas. Some guy showed up with a truck full of 10,000 bananas the next week and wanted the car. It ended up in court and the banana guy won from it being deemed false advertisement. Not a lawyer, but I know a guy who was interning in a law firm. And he ended up getting sued by one of the top lawyers at the firm for damages over a lost case folder. The lawyer ended up having to drop the suit a few days later when he discovered that, in the process of moving into a new office, he had just left the missing folder in his old office. This was apparently also a rite of passage, and just about everybody who works at the firm had been sued by this lawyer at some point. I guess he hadn't been fired because they knew it would be a total nightmare. Not a lawyer yet, but I have an amazing job as a secretary in a law firm while I'm studying. I get to read our cases. Favorite current one. The new client comes in. Dressed flashy and very inappropriately, she works for a bank. Almost like a prostitute. Here's the situation, and it's weird as duck. She was in a relationship with one of the bank's executives. The boss of her boss. All of a sudden, one of her co-workers, who apparently had put his eyes on her for a little while, made a move. She shot him down. But he wouldn't give up. She then asked her boyfriend, the executive bloke, to get this man to stop. But he refused. So she dumped him to get back at her. The executive then started dating our client's best friend. She now wants to file for sexual harassment claims. Everything about this case is weird as duck, and the people involved all behave like middle schoolers. Not a lawyer, but my uncle is. There was a house with 4 Leses living in it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 are couples. 1 and 3 start cheating on 2 and 4 together. So while 1 and 3 are in the bedroom together, 2 and 4 get in a car, I think it really was a Subaru, and drive it into the bedroom. No one was hurt. I think my uncle represented the homeowner's insurance company. One time I defended an apartment complex who was sued by a blind tenant for violating the Americans with Disabilities Act. Plaintiff's gripe was she wanted a parking spot right in front of her door. Obviously, plaintiff was not capable of driving and didn't have a car. She wanted the parking spot in case friends came over. She didn't want them to have to walk as far to get to her apartment. The part that made it really weird was she already had an assigned parking spot like 3 feet away from the one she was demanding. She wanted the absolute closest parking spot to her door, or it was discrimination even though she didn't own and couldn't operate a car. Not a lawyer, but did paralegal work for about a year. There was a lady we represented who was flying down the highway. Probably about 90 in a 55. Cop drives up behind her. Dash cam shows her swerving all over the place. He lights her up. She pulls over. He walks up and says, "Hello mom, how are you doing? Do you know why I pulled you over tonight?" She is obviously clueless. He says, "Well, it looks like your tabs, registration sticker, are expired. Have you been drinking tonight?" Rest of the stop goes par for the course. This lady is about 5'1" and maybe 100 pounds when she's soaking wet with change in her pockets. She blows .29, almost 4 times the legal limit. Well, unfortunately, expired tabs was a secondary offense, meaning they can't pull you over just for that. They could give you a ticket for that after pulling you over for things like speeding, failure to maintain a lane, failure to signal, etc. We motioned to have a case dismissed and it's thrown out. Had the cop said anything like "you were going pretty fast, you were swerving," anything, but because he stated the purpose as an illegal stop, the case was thrown out completely. I just worked on an amazing case recently. A woman and her duck buddy decided to try Nell in some crazy 6 position where he was apparently holding her arms behind her back. He falls on top of her and hurts her shoulder. She got a rotor cuff tear. She sued him and I represent his insurance company, so we stepped in. Till homeowners insurance will cover accidents from now. I wonder if you have to request that coverage specifically. Craziest cases are those sovereign citizen people who refuse to acknowledge the authority of the trial court. They create this word salad about the Constitution, maritime law, corporate entities, etc. Another time a woman wanted to charge her ex-boyfriend for stealing her cat. Her evidence: the cat was missing for 2 days. When she returned, she smelled like cigarette smoke. Ex is a smoker. Ergo, he stole the cat. I'm not a lawyer, but my mom is and I worked for her for a summer digitizing her files. One case I read about sticks out in my mind. So my mom is primarily a divorce lawyer, but does handle some criminal cases. The case in question is a family law case. As part of the process to digitize her files, I need to read through them so I can title them properly and organize them adequately. So this case is about a les couple, wife and wife, who are getting a divorce. They adopted 2 kids together. This in itself is not weird, but both the kids they adopted are special needs kids. I don't remember what exactly was wrong with them, but it's safe to say that they will likely never live entirely independently and would need to stay home or be in group homes. Maybe work an easy job like fast food or whatever. So this case was a custody case. But it wasn't that both moms wanted primary custody. It was that neither of the moms wanted primary custody. I didn't read the entirety of the file, but I think the resolution ended up being 50/50 split custody. I was a prosecutor at the time. A parent found messages on their teen's phone indicating a boy had given another boy a BJ at a Boy Scout camp out in exchange for a Fortnite game pack, a popular video game with kids. It gets worse. 2 other boys watched. Interviews were done. The boy that received had been bragging about it at school. After meeting with parents, none of them wanted us to prosecute. The kid that gave the BJ had parents with a business in the community. Not a lawyer, but work for a law firm. We do a lot of divorces. We had some people spend a bunch of money on cat custody. Who will get the cat? We had another client that same week spend a lot of money on hat custody. Client had a really sweet hat, but his ex wanted it. We also had a stalker of a celebrity call in and try to get a case started for custody of the celeb's kid. Are you married? Spiritually married. Yes, but not legally married. Are you on the birth certificate? No. Is it your kid? Not technically. Turns out the only time this person met the celebrity is going to their shows, trying to sneak backstage, and getting kicked out. Needless to say, we did not take the case lol. Not a lawyer, but my uncle is. He had one case where a lady let her dogs loose in a Bed Bath & Beyond to attack a lady who was suing her. Then at the trial brought a giant stuffed dog with her for no reason. Lawyer in the hospitality industry. My firm had a case where plaintiffs sued our client because plaintiffs, claimed they brought their baby into our client's pool. Another baby shat in the pool, and their baby got salmonella as a result. There was no evidence that the other baby even had salmonella. Their baby ended up being fine with no lasting health effects, and we won on summary judgment. Not a lawyer but work in public liability claims. A few years back, a guy accidentally ran over a 3-year-old boy while driving into a fast food restaurant parking lot. It was suspected he was looking at his phone or otherwise distracted, but the police couldn't prove it, so he wasn't ultimately convicted of negligent driving. Once he was cleared, he tried to sue the restaurant for psychological damages on the basis of their parking lot being badly designed and providing insufficient visibility and speed management. Ultimately he lost. There was simply nothing wrong with the parking lot, so his claim didn't have any merits. But it pisses me off that he tried to get compensation for killing someone else's child. So many. Taxi driver who leased a car scraped the side against a concrete barrier rather than report it. Per policy, the driver washed it and turned it back in. Turns out it was the second time the driver had done that. They decided not to lease to that driver anymore. The driver secretly recorded that conversation. The driver then filed 2 lawsuits. When I got the case, the driver told me that I was going to be shocked to hear how poorly the driver was treated. I listened to a totally normal person say they were sorry they couldn't lease any more cars because it happened twice. No yelling or anything. Yeah. Got the cases dismissed. Also, suing a neighbor because the hoer made them fix violations in their backyard. Lots of cases where we get medical records from people that are drug seeking or had pre-existing conditions that they want someone else to pay for. Claiming huge injuries from tiny accidents. People doing dumb things on off-road vehicles, then suing their friend and ruining relationships, all because it wasn't personal. I thought your insurance would pay me. Same thing with playing sports with friends. If it has a ball in it, you might get hit. A long time also, I used to do some relationship property work. Who gets what stuff after a couple splits up? In one case I represented the woman. Her ex-partner was self-represented. And he was totally crazy. He used to write long letters to my firm, addressed to the managing partner, who was a commercial lawyer, not a litigator. So he had nothing to do with the case. The letters always explained at some length that he was physically perfect, over 6 feet tall, and a genius WTH an IQ of 150, and that he would unleash the dogs of war and crush us all if we opposed him. Speaking of dogs, one of the main aspects of his case is that he said that after he and my client split up, he bought a dog. Then the dog died in a car crash because he was so sad after the breakup that he crashed his car. So now my client owed him money for the 3 years worth of dog food he'd supposedly bought. He used to ring me up and scream at me over the phone. He'd get naked and throw rocks at his neighbor's property. My client was terrified of him, and even I used to peer out of the elevator before leaving work at night in case he was waiting for me. The file was closed after he got drunk and choked to death on his own vomit at a party. Edit, I should add that while naked and throwing rocks at the neighboring property, he at all times sported an erection, which the rock throwing was intended to draw attention to. I'll give you 2. 1. Older one that I've posted about before. Someone is fired from her job because of failure to comply with tasks and is denied unemployment. Our defense is that she was pregnant. My client told me some other crazy shit that was going on at the workplace. Discovery confirmed what my client told me, that her workplace was a front for a prepper compound and that they were demanding she do military style drills while pregnant. Unemployment still denied. Thanks. NC. 2. Of my current caseload, I have a pending trial that includes allegation of an assault with a deadly weapon. The deadly weapon in question is a 20 inches box fan. Allegedly the box fan was swung around via the electric cable like a flail before someone was struck in the head. My first reaction to was pretty simple: where can I buy a box fan with a cable that strong?